We are taking ownership of our narrative, leading the conversation, enlightening our listeners. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.
Sitting with me here is His Excellency Mr. Raila Odinga, the former Prime Minister of Kenya. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. My name is Nqobani Mzizi from Africa Business Radio. Sir, you gave some great insight on the podium, but what I'd just like to speak to you about this evening is technology on the continent. We know that it is one of the biggest barriers as to us advancing and growing to the levels that we think we should. And you spoke quite strongly about it, that in Kenya there is certain levels of resistance, particularly from educators and from professors. Why do you think that is the case, sir?
You know, basically a human being is a conservative animal. Is used to the beaten path.
Yes.
So if you change the path that is useless to go to the water place, you'll get some resistance.
Of course.
So you begin first with the teachers at primary schools and secondary schools. When the government introduced this new subject of ICT, and the government decided that they were going to introduce laptops in primary schools. The mistake that was made was first not to begin by educating the teachers, so that the teachers themselves are ICT literate. So because of this, they felt disadvantaged and embarrassed. The result of this, they never actually even attempted to learn, and as a result, a lot of equipment went to waste. Okay, so I'm saying that the solution to that is to begin first by educating the teachers. By providing the skills to teachers so that they themselves become ICT literate. Then they can impart this knowledge on the children. So the mistake was not that of the teachers.
Yes.
It was the way the program was introduced and was implemented. With regard to the lecturers at the university, of course, all lecturers are used to the beaten path.
Yes.
And therefore they are resistant to any kind of change. You see? And it's just like the old story that you cannot teach an old dog
new tricks.
So they don't know and they don't want to know. And they are comfortable
in their old ways,
using the traditional ways of teaching the student. That is how we have taught the student all these years. Nothing has changed. So my view is that you need to actually begin by injecting new blood in the universities. Those old experienced teachers can still remain, but you also introduce younger teachers who are computer ICT savvy, so that the students don't miss out on this very vital education that they need. Okay.
Your passion for education is quite strong, and I know in 2016 you opened up an education center, the Raila Odinga Education Center. Can you tell us of some of the progresses that you have made since you've opened up that, and what makes you proud about it since the time you had opened it?
We have been trying to help particularly the disadvantaged children. Children who are, for example, orphaned, children who come from poor backgrounds, whose parents cannot afford school fees, and so on. And we have done this. This idea started when my father died.
Yes.
My father, as you know, was an educator.
Yes, sir.
I trained at Makerere University and then became a high school teacher. And in the years he promoted education, not only in Kenya but whole of Eastern Africa. He started by sending Kenyan students to study in India. He went to India and signed an agreement with the former Indian Prime Minister,
yes,
Mr. Nehru,
yes,
to send Kenyan students to India, and the Indian government would give them scholarships. And then he sponsored a number of the Kenyan students to go to Europe in those days, the USA, and the Americas. So he kept on, even when he was in government, promoting this, and when he retired, when he left government, he was still sponsoring. The time he died, he had 57 children in different stages of their education.
yes,
Some were in primary school, some were in secondary school, some were in the universities. As a family, we resolved that all those children would be given an opportunity to finish their education. So we started a fund to support those children. And so eventually we realized that to sustain it, we needed to now have a foundation.
yes,
That's why I started the Odinga Education Center. And started because I was also representing one of the biggest slums in Africa.
yes,
So the Kibera slums, Nairobi. We have nearly 1 million people
living in the slums.
very poor there. And they have no means to pay fees. A number of those children were struggling. So this center was sponsoring them. I went and built a school in the middle of the slum.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which is called Odinga Education Center. And there we taking children of the poor, and they start from the primary schools.
Yes.
And now we also introduce a secondary section. They go to secondary. I managed to get the government to give me teachers. Initially, I was also paying the teacher's salary, which was a heavy burden. I also got some company to sponsor feeding the children so that they could get lunch prepared, and these companies were paying. So it is a success. The Odinga Education Center is a success story in the country. We provide education to quite a number of children. We've also sponsored some children from Uganda, from Tanzania, and so on, to go to education. So we have made our contribution.
It looks like it that your legacy is going to outlive you by the sound of it.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, Mr. Nelson Mandela gave a quote around education, and Mr. Nyerere as well was known for being one of the most educated leaders, and you are making a good contribution to that. What would be your parting words for Africans on the continent around education and the development of education?
My message would be that education is the key to development, not only in Africa but in the world.
Yes.
The countries that have actually taken off or made it are those that have invested very heavily in education. And I, as a Pan-Africanist and an Afro-optimist,
love the word,
as opposed to Afro-pessimists. You see, Afro-pessimists are those who have given up on Africa. Those who say that Africa is a lost cause. It's a basket economy. But Afro-optimists are those who believe in the ability of the African people to develop Africa.
Yes.
and I belong to that school, that we can do it. And now the AU has actually given me an honor by appointing me as a special representative on infrastructure development in the continent.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my challenge to African people and government is that we must move Africa from this perennial poverty. And I've been saying that it is possible.
Yes.
We can do it if we do the right things. One of them is to invest in education. Okay? And we can reclaim this century, the 21st century, as an African century. That is my message, that let us invest in education 3 times.
Yes.
And if we do that, everything else will be built upon it. Okay? So my message is Africa is able. Other countries with less resources
have made it.
Japan has made it.
Singapore,
Korea,
Vietnam.
After coming from the war, those years has come up and planned and made it. So it is possible to do it. You just need to have commitment, have dedication, and the discipline that's required. And I'm sure that we can claim the 21st century as truly an African century.
I believe that I share your sentiment, and I take your word. I'm an Afro-optimist as of today. Mr. Raila Odinga, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Asante, sir.
Africa Business Radio is now available on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Take us everywhere. Download the app for easy access to our informative content. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.